Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Champions of Wellness podcast. We have a different guest today, somebody subbing in for my brother. Everyone say hello to our reoccurring guest for the second time now, Mr. Jonathan Lopez.
How's it going, everyone? I'm happy to be here today. Yeah, I'm subbing in for Josh, and I'm excited to be here today and to learn more about our topic and to be here with Sahan. So yeah, I'm excited. Thank you for having me
Yeah,
here, Sahan.
yeah, of course, of course. Good to have you back as always. So, what we're going to be talking about today is something that affects all of us because it's one a part of our body that is so crucial to our wellness and that we can actually make pretty good leverage of if we are able to understand what it does and how we can stimulate it through a bunch of different techniques that we have to show you here today. And if you ever struggled with chronic stress, digestive issues, anxiety, inflammation, chronic fatigue, other autoimmune issues, and you feel like your body just isn't listening to you, it's not recovering in the way that you want to, this might be a very, very helpful video for you and might shed a lot of awareness on what you can do in your home and apply in your daily life to help um, add a little bit of solution to those issues. So the title um, of our episode today is the vagus nerve, and it's one of our 12 cranial nerve. It's the 10th cranial nerve, and today we're gonna kind of go into um, what it innervates, what's the role of it, why it's so important, why a lot of people are actually talking about it in the health space right now, and why it's really relevant to you and to everyone watching this video. And I'm gonna pull
Yeah,
up a little presentation for us so you guys can follow along with the points that we're talking about.
yeah. Good introduction, Sahan. I'm glad to agree with you. The vagus nerve is something that's highly talked about recently. Um, I learned about it in going to my undergrad right now, but as I delved deeper into it, I was very interested and I learned a lot recently studying about it. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. So the vagus nerve is like Sahan said, it's the 10th cranial nerve out of the 12 that we have, and it's actually one of the longest cranial nerves. It's located near the brainstem, and then it travels down all the way through your body. The vagus actually means in Latin to wander. And the way I like to think about this vagus nerve is that it's a highway system kind of that travels all around your body, feedbacks loops, and then it also sends from your gut or from your heart or from your lungs. We'll talk about that in the future. And it goes all the way back up, back to your brain. So it's always working and it's chowing down and giving us signals for our body to relax or to stimulate. And yeah, but to first talk about it, I'll like to mention, yeah, so why the vagus nerve is so important. So to start off, I want to talk about clearly what the nervous system is and how that works in our body. So there's two parts to the nervous system. The first part is the automatic nervous system, and then the second part is also the voluntary nervous system. And today we'll talk about mainly the automatic nervous system, and in that part it has two. I, many of us probably heard of it, but it's called the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. And in the parasympathetic nervous system is where we focus mainly on the rest and digest, where our bodies are able to relax, our stomach is able to digest food, where our eyes dilate to receive more light coming in, where our blood pressure is relaxed, and overall we're just in a state of relax. And these two nervous systems are always working, but at the same time, but sometimes one is taking over the other and vice versa. And I'll let Sahan talk about what the sympathetic nervous system is.
So the sympathetic nervous system is kind of quite the opposite of the parasympathetic nervous system instead of rest and digest responses. You're going to see um, responses that are more favored to what is called fight or flight. And a lot of these responses kind of go with the name fight or flight. And a lot of like analogies that are used are, if you see a bear in the woods, what is the first initial reaction that your body is happening? You may have sweats, you may have increased heart rate, um, you may have vasodilation, so more blood, or excuse me, vasoconstriction. um, your heart might be beating a lot faster. You're more primed for running or for those type of movements. It could also be inflammatory responses induced. For example, if you're sick, your parasympathetic, excuse me, sympathetic tone is going to increase to kind of protect your body. So you have that fight or flight. It's a really active response, and it's really good throughout our day when we're going and doing high stress activities, anything like that, working, going to the gym, doing other things like that. That's usually going to stimulate the sympathetic tone. But
Yeah, exactly.
with everything,
So
there's like a time and a place.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So but I think today mainly we'll be talking about the parasympathetic nervous system as it relates to the vagus nerve. And just as Sahan said, it's like a master regulator. And we just talked about how it controls the heart rate, the breathing, digesting, inflammation. But another interesting thing that I feel like I recently learned about it, how the anti-inflammatory reflex system works here with the vagus nerve, and how it detects how it says in PowerPoint, detects cytokines and signals of brain to dial down inflammation, protecting against chronic diseases. So the way when our body when we get sick, we have our sympathetic nervous system working for us and setting down different cytokines, different immune body cells, memory cells to fight against all these different bacteria that we have or viruses that we have. And it's important to have that, right? And it's a good balance to have it. But the importance about the vagus nerve system is that once we recover from this illness and once we are getting better and once we don't need this high stimulant in our body and always going, that's when the vagus nerve system comes and it relaxes us. It tells our body that we have fought this illness. And a lot of it is that when we have this ongoing stress in our life or ongoing sickness, and our vagus nerve system isn't clearly working with our body, we're constantly on go, and our body can't handle all that. And that's something that's very important about the anti-inflammatory reflex that the vagus nerve brings to the table, and also how we mentioned that it's a large signal system in our body. It also works with the gut-brain axis, and we can't just think of it as our brain sending signals to our body, but it actually works in the reverse. So our body sends signals to our brain, and actually 80% to 90% of communication is from the gut to the brain. And I think of it all the time as like in my life, how, like, for example, if I'm not feeling the best with my stomach, or I'm like not, I probably haven't been eating the healthiest, it like my mind is not clear. My mind is not able to focus, to study, to enjoy the things that I do. And I'm constantly like worrying about, I don't know, worrying about life. And I realized that how important this vagus nerve system is here because it works with our gut brain axis. And I don't know, Sahan, do you feel the same way? Like when you're like constantly like low because of like your gut issues or
Yeah,
something like that?
100%. I think when I eat something um, that is not healthy, the first reaction that I probably get triggered is inflammation, and you might start to see like puffiness in the eyes, in the face area, and that's probably the first telltale sign that you've done something to stimulate sympathetic drive, while what you need to do is stimulate parasympathetic drive for your gut brain axis. Uh, the gut is primarily innervated by the sympathetic parasympathetic innervation, and that's why it's called rest and digest. We don't want to be in sympathetic drive when we're digesting our food. So you're kind of stimulating an opposite effect right there, which is gonna end up messing up your digestion, absorption of those nutrients, and then you're gonna feel all those things that you were talking about. Um,
Yeah,
Loss
exactly.
of
And
focus, not
yeah,
being able to think straight, and all the things that you were talking
yeah, I think it's so fascinating how our body works in this high complex system, but it's all connected. And that's why I think one like the vagus nerve is probably one of the most important things, showing that connection throughout our body. And the last thing that I want to mention in this slide is the resilience switch and this high vagal tone supports, and also helping with a better heart rate variability, as well as emotional regulation and over adaptability. I want to let Sahan explain what this HRV stands for and how we can really think about it.
So, heart rate variability is pretty much your body's ability to regulate and change your heart rate in response to like physical demand. And if you have a low heart rate variability, um, when you're doing these certain movements, your body's heart rate is not able to increase or compensate to meet the demands of whatever activity that you're doing. So pretty much if you have to go for a run, your heart rate is not getting up to the certain amount of beats per minute or stroke volume response that you need to. So then there's a gap, and you're not able to complete said task because you have poor heart rate variability. And we want to have good heart rate variability because that sets our tone of how high we can go and how low we can go. We want to be really dynamic with how our heart rate can go up and down.
Yeah, and then that I feel like that also supports on the high vagal tone as well. The vagal tone is it determines how fast our nervous system can work. For example, when you go from a high vagal tone, can you go from a state of being very excited or very demanding your body, and then can you be able to relax right after? So
Hmm.
how fast can you switch from that high pressure to that relaxed state? And I always think about going back to like playing soccer and or long distance running. Right now, as I'm trying to train for a marathon, I'm really trying to work on that heart rate being low and trying to control that breathing, and that's what we're talking about in the future. But it goes back to the high vagal tone as well, and how our nervous system can really work there and control our heart rate, control our lung expanding and our lung compressing, and our gut, and overall just our body being able to work at this high pace, but also be able to go back and relax as well.
Hmm.
And I think it's just so important how we should be able to understand what that means and also to work to get better at that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I have a
Yeah.
little note right here that actually relates the vagus nerve to heart rate variability directly, and how you can kind of understand a little bit what's going on with each breath that you are taking. So the direct connection is that when you exhale, your vagus nerve squirts a chemical called acetylcholine onto your heart's natural pacemaker. So your heart's has a natural pacemaker through these nodes that kind of set its rhythm on how many times it's beating per minute. And there is a braking action or mechanism that tells your heart to instantly slow down. And the result from this braking action is when you inhale, vagal activity drops and your heart speeds up. So inhaling is decreasing vagal activity. And this constant tug of war is exactly what creates heart rate variability. And with that information, inhale being increasing sympathetic drive, what is a really good technique for increasing vagal tone is a long, deep exhale. So you see when people are huffing and puffing, that's when you know they're definitely in sympathetic drive because they're taking a bunch of these super fast repeated inhales. And what
Yeah,
we want to
exactly.
do to slow down the heart rate is take our inhale, as slow as possible, but really focus on a slow, constant exhale, fully out, letting all of the air out of our body. That's probably one of the fastest ways we can switch over to stable tone.
I feel like I had to learn that like the hard way, like running all the time or like playing soccer
Mm-hmm.
and really trying to like control that breathing. Because when you control that breathing, you can really control that heart rate. And that's something I like always try to tell like players like I'm coaching or when I'm running with my brother or when I'm running with anyone, really try to control that breathing. But I really didn't know that exhale is more really more important than that inhale. Not more important, but it's important that you emphasize the exhale more than inhale and
Yeah,
trying
because
to control that.
when you mentally think breathe, you think like you're
Yeah,
not conscious about the exhale and what the exhale is actually doing in your body. What happens in the exhale is the gases are exchanging and it's giving opportunity to have that partial pressure change, so that when you inhale again, the oxygen can actually go to your tissues instead of just going into your lungs and not fully reaching the tissues that this is supplying. Yeah,
yeah,
really,
exactly.
really
Well,
cool. And breathing should be taught in any type of sport that you do, whether it's martial arts that it stresses breathing a lot, soccer, football, all these things. They should definitely have a huge emphasis on. And
yeah, exactly.
we have a couple comments. First one from Diego Murillo 9947. This is a frequent watcher of ours, and I actually got this shirt from him. So shout out to Diego for Costa Rica. Just came back, but he asked, "Does the vagus nerve connect with sciatica, or do they not relate at all?" So trekking along with DTK actually answered this question perfectly. He's correct in saying the sciatic nerve and vagus nerve are very different. The sciatic nerve kind of runs from the hip down to the posterior leg. So it's in the lower part of our bodies, in those hamstring muscles, most notably, and some of the lower back, while the vagus nerve comes down from the brain stem, innervates our esophagus, which is kind of our food tube when we're swallowing. It makes this esophageal plexus um, by wrapping around on the back side and the front side of our esophagus, coming down into our heart, where you have the cardiac plexus. The plexus literally just pretty much means that's where the nerve expands out and forms a bunch of different branches. You have you have it in your food tube, in your heart. It goes all the way to your lungs as well, and then finally, as it travels all the way down, it goes into your stomach and parts of your intestines as well. So it has pretty significant innervation. Also, it goes to your kidneys. So that's like a bunch of vital organs I just listed right off the bat. So that just shows you how crucial this nerve is when it comes
Yeah,
to
and
breathing.
I think I can answer the next question
Mm-hmm.
that Diego Murillo 9947 had on how can I know if my vagus nerve is working at its best. And this is something that you could definitely check. I feel like one of the biggest things that you could rely on is how low your heart rate can get, and a big emphasis on that is because when your heart rate is very low, it shows that your body is very relaxed and your parasympathetic system is working at its finest right now. And of course, you don't want it too low. But one of the best athletes in the world, Michael Phelps, for example, had his heart rate um, in the high 20, no, high 20s and low 30s at a time. And it really shows and emphasizes how really having that low heart rate and letting your body be relaxed in a state where you're constantly stressed in a world of high pace, having that heart rate low, being relaxed, really shows that your nervous system is working at its finest. You can also check it through an Apple Watch or Garmin watch. They have the HRV. If you can't check that, you can also go to your doctor, your primary care, and they can do an electrocardiogram, and they can tell you from there if your HRV is working fine, if your heart rate is working as well, and if you're pacemaking, your heart is fine as well. So that's how you can check your vagus nerve system if it's working. Yeah,
Perfect.
good questions. Yeah.
And the last one he has is when it comes to breathing, do I have to change the way I take it in? You don't have to make it too complicated. So there's a little funny way, but I would say just inhale through the nose. Don't want any mouth breathing. I would say breathe primarily in and out uh, through the nose. You're gonna actually retain a lot more water when you breathe with your mouth. You're actually losing um, a lot more water, and you actually become dehydrated much faster that way because all of
No,
the
I feel like you also answered that question before when you were mentioning about the deep breathing, inhaling, and having that long exhale as well after. So
yeah. So yeah, just through the nose is the best way.
yeah,
So we kind of went. I kind of did this explanation with one of the
yeah,
questions you asked. So where
yeah.
does the vagus nerve travel, and what does it touch? So as it says on the PowerPoint here, it goes from the brainstem through the neck, the chest, and the abdomen. So pretty much our center line, and
It's
it
like the
innervates.
longest nerve, right? The longest cranial nerve. I think that travels down.
I'm not sure 100%, but I would probably believe so because
Yeah,
it's yeah, literally from our brainstem all the way down to our abdomen, and you can see a bunch of the major organs here. Our heart, it slows down our heart rate and improves our heart rate variability, so we can handle a bunch of different stresses and also be able to have the capacity to go back and rest and feel in a safe, comfortable environment. It innervates our lungs, so it regulates the depth of our breathing, and our airway tone. And this is really important because we want to have full access of our lungs. We don't want to kind of have this partial um, expansion and closure. We want to have full range um, when we're breathing. And the best way is to stimulate our vagal tone. That's going to especially allow us to fully exhale, have that exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen. And what people don't really understand is the reason the breath out is so important is because you want a CO2 to build up in your tissues. Because if not enough CO2 builds up in your tissues, that exchange when you breathe in of oxygen and CO2 won't be as much. You need
I
enough
believe
CO2
I
on
believe
this
it's the
side and enough
bicarbonate
oxygen.
system, right?
Yeah, you need
The
enough. You
bicarbonate.
need enough presence of CO2 in order to facilitate um, those gas exchanges. So you need to develop. It's called there's this technique called like short breathing. It's when you take short inhales and do deep exhales. So you're kind of inducing what's called uh, like hypocapnia, which is like, I guess, in a sense, carbon dioxide, like not toxicity, but a larger presence of it. And that's really what that difference or presence of CO2 is what's gonna get those oxygen in your tissues. That's why you feel tired all the time because you're not breathing right. You're not getting the oxygen into your tissues. And if you do some of these techniques and increase your vagal tone, you're gonna have that exchange be much more efficient than it is
Yeah,
right now.
I feel like just like starting off, like at least 1 minute a day, 2 minutes a day has like really changed like especially the times like when I feel like very stressed or like when it's like a lot of studying for school, really like just settling down and just trying to take those deep breaths. I feel like do change it, and over time, like I feel like you feel like a big difference in the way like your heartbeats rhythm and the way you feel more relaxed under tension. And it really, I didn't really recognize how when you get down chemically and how you can see it, the CO2, you want more CO2 building up, so it can switch with oxygen is very important in that like
Hmm.
that bicarbonate buffer system. And I don't know, I feel like it's like you're constantly learning these new things, and it's like really makes you motivates you more to like control that breathing and to really focus on trying to be present in the moment. And when you even get down to it, you could like really say like how present do you want to be in life and how present do you want to feel right now. And when everyone tells you that, they say first thing is to breathe, right? To focus on your breathing,
Yeah,
focus
for
on
sure.
medicate. And there it's like you see that the vagus nerve system is what really helping you through that breathing, helping you control that heart rate. And it's interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like when some people get triggered by when you when people tell them to relax, calm down, take a few deep breaths, but it's uh, nothing more than the truth. Literally, if you look at this list of what I have here about all of the things that this vagus nerve innervates: heart, lungs, gut, liver, pancreas, immune system, your voice. By doing a couple deep breaths with a longer exhale, you can literally change um, the way your heart, lungs, and all the other vital organs are functioning. And that's probably one of the simplest things that you don't need anything for. You can reach all of these vital organ systems. And um, uh, even through that, stimulating the vagal tone is going to put all of these for a much better plane in terms of healing. You're actually going to give your body um, the signals that it needs to heal, and that's why when we have these conditions like chronic stress, we develop hypertension, as you probably heard of. Something that's going to affect our heart. Develop breathing issues, which affects our lungs. Our lungs. We have develop, IBS or gut issues, leaky gut, which we've talked about many times. Um, it stimulates that, increasing our sympathetic tone. Now our body is fighting ourselves with all of these immune cells, and we're having reactions um, and issues to foods that you never had before. I know many times where recently, uh, before I started to heal my gut, that when my gut wasn't in a good place, it was kind of reacting to everything. There was nothing that could really settle my stomach and make me feel good. That's because of this vagal relationship. Once something enters your gut and it causes inflammation there, you're going to have a whole immune response everywhere else in your body. Then how are you really going to heal, absorb the nutrients that you need to be absorbing, and have all of these other processes um, operate in the way that they're supposed to? You're pretty much compromising all of your vital organs if you're not taking the time and investing the time in your day to stimulate vagal tone.
Yeah,
Just to wrap,
exactly.
just to wrap up this. Hold on. Let me. We have a couple new questions here
Okay.
from MP4. Actually, Diego Murillo asked another question. He said, "Sometimes in the night I sleep with my mouth open. Is that messing up my breathing?" Um, I, I would say for some people it's relatively normal. It may be messing up your breathing through the night. I know a lot of people reported using some sort of mouth tape, and they feel that they are a lot more energized in the morning. So that's probably something I could recommend for that. MP4 change that seems breath control can literally uh, stimulate the vagus nerve and in turn the gut brain connection, lungs, heart, and basically all organs in the body. So good breathing creates health. Yep, that's super spot on with what we just talked about on this slide. Diego Merlo said it's 1 to 3 minutes of pumping air correctly, the right amount to start with. Uh, yeah, I would say I don't know what you mean by pumping air, but if you're talking about breathing, then yeah, 1 to 3 minutes when you need it, when you feel like you're in a high stress environment, is definitely um, start with. Last question is constipation or diarrhea being controlled um, by the vagus nerve? And it definitely is. Um, Constipation. There's a few other nerves that enter the gut system We also have um, our splanchnic nerves and the nerves that innervate our rectum. But I would say in kind of the foregut and the midgut, where all of that nutrient transfer is happening, vagus nerve is definitely in there. While there's also sympathetic innervation from our splanchnids as well.
Yeah,
And
and when you
constipation
think
is
of like constipation, yeah, exactly. When you think constipation and like diarrhea, you think of like an issue going around in like in your gut. And how we mentioned before, how the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system is working with that rest and digest and that flight or fight. So we're saying how if you're constantly in that um sympathetic nervous system, like you can't really like let that food go down quickly, and you're creating constipation, and you're creating a sense of this, like your peristalsis, like the food that goes in your body, right, travels down and to your gut, and it takes a while to get down and create like a bowel movement, and that usually leads to constipation, and that is controlled by the vagus nerve system. So, but I wouldn't say that it's like 100% like control, like not everything is just the nervous system, but it's a part of it. Like Sahan said, there's different nerves that as well helps in the gut, but it's definitely in relationship towards that constipation or towards that maybe that diarrhea, the opposite of constipation. So
yeah, and that kind of shows like that's I guess constipation and diarrhea is more representative of poor vagal tone,
mhm,
and that means that
exactly, yeah.
a lot of the reflexes that are happening um, in your gut and intestinal tract are not doing well, and it means that it's instead of absorbing the nutrients, you're just trying to flush everything out. That's why diarrhea is such watery stool because it's just taking everything in the gut and then trying to flush it out and get rid of it because it's sensing it as something that it needs to get rid of.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna add one more thing. This is like a little note that I have from a video I watched, Dr. Jack Cruz. And he's kind of talking about how the vagus nerve can defrag our body. And when he uses the term defrag, it means to deplete or rid our body of deuterium. And we talked about deuterium on the water podcast and the heavy isotope of oxygen, or sorry, hydrogen.
I think I was there. That was the podcast
Yeah, we were. Yeah, you
I was
were.
in. Yeah,
That was the
yeah,
yeah that was the first podcast that we had you on. And
yeah.
since deuterium is this heavier isotope, we need we need some way to rid it of the body. So, our mitochondria can work much faster and more efficiently. And he said the vagus nerve is actually pretty crucial in our body's natural deuterium depletion process. So we through the vagus nerve, every time the heart beats, it's actually kind of tugging on it on the vagus nerve, and because it it is directly innervated by it in that specific um, uh, part of the body, the mediastinum. And when it pulls on the vagus nerve, it defrags or depletes the deuterium on the left side of our brain, which I did not know at all.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Wow.
for the side of the brain, we have something called the gastrocolic reflex, which is pretty much um, the reflex in our colon that moves um, uh, the fecal matter inside all the way through its course. And he said the best way to stimulate this gastrocolic reflex to um, release or this deuterium in your body is to wake up in the morning, get sun, and be grounded with 2 feet on grass or sand or whatever you can get outside, which we've always been saying. But you also need to consume a meal within the first hour of waking. And what you're gonna feel is the urge to go to the bathroom and do a number two. And when you have this
About
urge, when you have this urge, that's that gastrocolic reflex, um,
Mhm.
um, signaling your body for for pooping. And the tell is uh, in the toilet, and you see what's called a Bristol style formation of fecal matter, and that's pretty much if you ever see like the long poop, if it looks like a long thing, that's how you know um, that reflex is working perfectly, and your body is really getting rid of deuterium. And I know you have the curves, the other shapes, but so if you see a long one in there in the morning, your
You're
your body's
healthy. Your
doing
gut's
something
healthy.
right.
Yeah.
Hmm. What's next? There's a lot of questions, some, but I want to keep the slide deck moving.
Yeah. So I feel like we mentioned a lot about this already, about how, of course, this chronic stress, um, like in your
We can
life. I
just
know.
touch on them really quickly.
Yeah, so yeah, like we mentioned this before, the chronic stress leads to hypertension in your body, leads to so many different illnesses, infection, inflammation as well. When you get conjunctivitis or you have some form of bacteria, it leads to your vagus nervous system also weakening, physical trauma, neck injuries, surgeries, any pressure that's mainly around um, your neck, creating that physical trauma can definitely affect that nerve, metabolic and immune load as well. So these are chronic illnesses as well, like diabetes and obesity, and of course, poor sleep. One of the biggest factors that any person will tell you is that healthy, um, healthy and routine sleep, right? Sleeping at similar times every day will really help your body work at its full capacity, right? And that includes your vagus nerve system working. Because I feel like I've mentioned this before, but like our body is just like a whole entire machine, and it's like and people think just because one system goes down, everything goes down, but that's not how it works. Our body has many different like factors to it. But the issue is that once we like ignore so many different factors, that's when our body really starts breaking down. And the vagus nerve system is one of these factors to it. So it's really trying to have that vagus nerve system to work clearly against these diabetes, against obesity, against all these illnesses, and trying to live the best possible life that you can, health with health, and then lifestyle factors as well as we mentioned, poor nutrition, and I really want to touch on the constant screen-driven stress that mentions here, creating this low vagal tone. And Saha and I were talking about how it's so important to mentioned the blue light and how this blue light could really affect your low vagal tone. And I feel like we always see it on social media, or when we like try to live a better lifestyle, we try to stay away from that phone at night. We try to find time to relax without your phone, because that blue light that's hitting you, or if you need to be on your phone, have like some form of glasses that can avoid that blue light constantly hitting your eyes,
Yep,
right?
like these ones right here.
Yeah, the ones you got right there. Yeah. And then I try to put my glasses on after right around 8 or 9 as well, trying to avoid that blue light. And it's so important because even if you don't see it like the first day, couple of days, maybe you start feeling it after, when you really have that routine and trying to stay away from that blue light at night, that you constantly sleep better. And then this better sleep leads to this vagus nerve working better, right? And high vagal tones increase there as well. And I feel like it's like an ongoing cycle. Once you increase one thing, once you better one thing, it keeps going. And the one last thing that I want to mention was the facial restriction. And I think you had this podcast that you talked about last week as well about the fascia.
Yeah, so the right here it says that tight or scarred fascia, especially in the neck, chest, and abdomen, which is where our vagus nerve travel, can mechanically impede nerve mobility and flow. So, the vagus nerve is encapsulated in fascia, like all of our other organs and our muscles and all of our different compartments of the body, like I talked about in the last podcast. And if we go back to a couple concepts that I talked about there, I talked about piezoelectricity, which is pretty much electricity generated from mechanical tension. and the mechanical tension specifically being in the fascia. So if the fascia is very tight and scarred, that mechanical tension is going to send a different signal than if the fascia is open and loose and flowing and fluid. And when we have these tight and scarred fascia, it can actually compress um, the vagus nerve at different locations in the neck, chest, and abdomen. And when this vagus nerve is compressed, the signals that are traveling up, up and down the vagus nerve are then impeded. So then our body is not in sync, and this may result in nerve compression and inflammation, um, and weaker signals sent to all of our vital organs, which is definitely something we don't want to happen. So if you have muscle tension, um, even though muscle tension or tightness, which is what I want to call it, which is obviously going to be conjoined with fascial tightness as well, that's actually going to have a direct impact on the health and signaling of your organs as well. So that's another thing to be um, uh, really aware of. That muscle tension, especially in this region, is going to influence your organs. And I feel like a lot of people like to separate like physical injuries and those types of problems with sickness and illness and organ issues. What you actually need to know is that all of these are interrelated through the fascia because the fascia is what connects all of our all of our body parts. And if there's mechanical stress or tension in one part, that's going to result in a different response somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on to the next one.
Yeah, we go into the next one.
Yep. You want to? Let me see. Do I want to answer some of these? Is there different positions I can do to have a healthy vagus nerve? Um, Probably there's different poses. The child's pose is one that my martial arts teacher tells us to do a lot, and I feel that that one really gives me a good deep breath. It gives me a good stretch to um, my upper body and gives my stomach the ability to expand and relax. And I feel like I get really good deep breaths that way.
Yeah, and I think also as well as like you mentioned, like having that chest up and like having that back straight, right? And forcing your lower back to work a little more, right? Instead of being
Hmm.
hunched over. It
Yeah,
definitely
definitely
helps
good
with like
posture.
yeah, good posture as well because I remember like studying for long hours. I would like see a difference just in my like trainer process when I'm standing up straight, when I'm controlling my breath. So I definitely think that as well, good posture will help this vagus nerve system.
Yeah, and if you think about what you just said, when you have good posture, your fascia, especially in this region, is open and loose
Oh
and
yeah,
nice, and your muscles are working where it needs to be. So if you're like
exactly.
this, then all the fascia in here is like kind of coming in and getting compressed, which is also going to compress your vagus nerve.
Yeah,
There's another
that's a
relationship
good
there.
call. Yeah, I didn't even think about that too. Yeah.
Yeah. When I have a gag reflex, is it because my vagus nerve is rejecting what I'm taking, or is it just a natural reaction? Um, I'm not 100% sure. It definitely has to do with your vagus nerve because it innervates like I said, pretty much your whole digestive tract, your food tube, which is your esophagus, your larynx, which is responsible for your voice. So it could definitely be part of the vagus nerve rejecting uh, what you're eating or
Y-
what you're taking.
Yeah, I feel like that's like maybe like a different nerve or maybe that's like a automatic process that your body does just to like protect you from anything from choking or anything that's going on in your mouth.
Hmm.
So yeah. And then I think the last question I can read it out loud. I saw a documentary saying that if a human immune system were to stop working, the vagus nerve can easily take over. I would, and how true is that? Okay. I would have to say maybe they were being a little over exaggerating because I think that if the immune system stops working, there's a lot of other things I get to worry about, like easily contracting a virus or any form of bacteria. You remember B cells won't be there, so it'll be very hard to heal from that. But the nervous system is connected to the immune system, as we mentioned before, and they do intertwine together. And when they work together at their best, that's when the vagus nervous system is very good, and you have high vagal tone, as we mentioned.
Yeah, I guess I kind of see a point to that comment. Obviously,
Yeah,
we need our immune system. It's our protective system so that we don't get sick and contract all these bacteria and viruses. But also, we don't want it to be acting when it doesn't need to. And if we're a healthy individual, we kind of don't want our immune system active because uh, it's we're not going to have these inflammations and flare ups um, because those responses are only needed when there's something pathogenic coming into our body. But if there is no outside pathogens or stresses that are going to cause that, we don't want our immune system acting up because that's not going to have our body healing and in a protective and relaxed state. So
yeah,
there's like
exactly.
yeah two sides to the coin.
Hmm.
Let me just make sure I covered all these. So some of the conditions linked to low vagal tone include gastroparesis, IBS, bloating, constipation, um, reflux, and poor motility. So this kind of goes with one of the questions that was asked. Um, any inflammation we have in our gut is probably going to be linked to low vagal tone. And we want to do our best job to stimulate high vagal tone. So
Yeah, I
for
think
the
we hit a
gut,
lot. Yeah.
yeah, for the gut, I would recommend something like bone broth. It's very healing, easy to digest. I've never had a problem ever when consuming bone broth, so that's a good uh, way to heal the gut and eliminate and not stimulate any other type of constipation or bloating. We covered cardiovascular with the low heart rate variability. Next one we have here orthostatic intolerance. So that has to do with POTS patients. Um, and if we can stimulate vagal tone, we may be able to reduce POTS symptoms like dizziness, headaches, and whatnot. Immune and inflammatory, we already talked about that. We need to lower inflammation so that we don't have these flares when we don't need to. Lower vagal tone actually makes us a lot more sociable in kind of this state of learning. We're able to be a lot better in social situations and just a lot better to be around. When we're in low vagal tone, it's kind of quite the opposite. We're easily stressed out, and all these things are happening. We can't handle the world, and we pretty much need this system in order to handle all of the stresses of the entire world. So if we're not um, putting some time into it,
Yeah, I feel
we're
like
gonna
we mentioned this in the beginning, like how,
yeah
sorry to cut you off, but like how you mentioned like anxiety and how if you're always like stressed out and you're going through tough times, but and you when you're around people, you're always just thinking about other things, and you're not in the present, and you're constantly worrying about what you have to do. That definitely lowers your vagal tone, and really focusing on just trying to be in the moment, and how we mentioned it before, trying to take those deep breaths really helps you increase that vagal tone, and then also increase your sociability, as you said. And that sociability also increases your sense of belonging, and it goes back to a lot of psychological effects on how you'll feel more welcome, and how you want to be more involved around other people, and how us humans want to be social. We're meant to be social, right? Like we're never meant to be alone, and how that plays a big part too as well. So that was a good call. Yeah.
yeah. And you can see like I don't know. There might be like kind of like a personality shift as time has moved on because Um, there's much more technology. The whole landscape of jobs and things are super high stress nowadays, and that's definitely contributing to all the problems that you see here. People don't have the time to sit down and maybe talk with friends and family and enjoy just because of how stressed our environment is nowadays, especially with all the technology and so forth.
Yeah, and I feel like all the techniques we have been mentioning, everything that we could do to increase our vagal tone. I think it's the simple things that really work here, right? Like we mentioned before, the breathing techniques, and like how we just mentioned right now as well, how being in the moment and being more social and really trying to decrease that stress can increase the vagal tone as well. So I feel like we're hitting a pattern here where we can see that the simplicity is the key to a lot of the stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. So, um, was this mine or did I?
No, so this is another part that we mentioned here is how dysfunction creates dis-ease, like that disease in the body, right?
Mm-hmm.
So reduced signaling as well, as we mentioned, between organs, and the biggest thing here is how we mentioned that the vagus nerve system, 80% of it is going from the gut to the brain. So when we reduce the signaling, that's when we have issues with our gut, right? Because our gut can't travel straight to the brain, saying that hey, we're good, or we're not feeling the best, or we're going through some irritation, right? And that creates reduced signaling, a sympathetic dominance, as we mentioned before, how we have both always working, but it's always important to keep that balance, like in anything in life. But when you have that sympathetic nervous system always going and going and going, and especially in this high paced world, that's when we see like these other issues going on. And honestly, I agree with this because times when I do feel stressed is usually when, like a week after or a couple of days after, is when I get sick, and it's like an ongoing pattern and something that like we all have to work on, trying to be as relaxed as possible. Obviously, that's not possible because I feel like everyone's gonna go through stress, but being able to control it as well and not to overdo it is very important. And the systemic ripple as well. So game motility slows, heart rate variability drops, as we mentioned before, and our mood regulation, as well as the sociability with other people, suffers. And the last part is that poor sleep inflammation further suppresses vagal tone, creating a self reinforcing cycle of imbalance. And as we mentioned before, if you increase one thing in your life, for example, you're sleeping, and you can increase your vagal tone, you can increase other parts in your life. But same thing as negative works. If you don't increase your sleeping or you don't work on your sleeping pattern, then your vagal tone could decrease and other stuff as well. So it's a big constant loop, and we try to just be as positive as possible with this feedback loop.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I want to go back to the first point where it says reduce signaling, and it says yeah these messages become a lot fewer and weaker between the organs and our brain. So that's when our body is not really coherent and acting in unison. It's supposed to act in unison. All of our parts should be synced up and connected. And when one starts to act more independently of the other, that's when we're much more vulnerable and much more prone to sickness and autoimmune issues. And the fact that our inflammatory reflex weakens is huge disadvantage to be in because that is the main thing that's protecting us. So we need to have that on prime time as much as possible. We want full control over when that response or reflex is turned on and when it's turned off. And
Yeah,
when it's
exactly.
turned on all the time, you have um, a lot of the things that we were talking about, specifically um, mast cell activation syndrome, which is when your body kind of perceives everything as an allergy. Um, and if you think about it, when you have an allergy to something, it's just you taking in something, and your body is just putting in an immune response to it. Then you have to take a shot of the EpiPen in order to decrease all of your body's own immune reaction. That's why I keep saying your body's fighting itself when it doesn't have to, and it should theoretically not be doing that. Technically, you should not have these allergies to substances that people have been eating for thousands and thousands of years, like nuts. Um, a lot of people eat nuts. Nuts are a good, healthy fat, but some people just have allergies to them, and that's because of a lot of the environmental changes that we have to do. And one thing
Yeah.
that we offer at Healing Array is called NATE. It's called Nambudripod's allergy elimination technique, and that really does a good job of helping with um, this inflammatory reflex and mast cell activation.
Yeah.
So I want to take a quick moment to shout out our sponsors at Oil Divine. Um, they are a skincare primarily company, and they also sell non-toxic cleaning agents and other supplies on their website. Um, they're 100% natural, 100% organic with the highest quality ingredients that you can pretty much get on the market. I've used a lot of the serums and oils that you see on this screen right here, and I think they work really good wonders. And if you guys want a promo code to get a discount on their website, you just have to go on their website and at checkout use the code HYWCOW for Champions of Wellness, and you'll get a discount on any of your purchases.
Okay.
So the vagus nerve and how it relates to fascia. I talked about piezoelectricity, how it develops. It's an electric impulse developed from mechanical tension or stress to the body. And just to give you a little more background, if you're still confused on what fascia is, it's a continuous connective tissue network that surrounds and links every muscle, organ, and nerve in our body, as well as our um, bones as well. And it's richly innervated, meaning there's a lot of nerves that go through it, and it acts as the body's largest sensory organ. And how fascia affects the vagus nerve specifically is that the vagus travels through multiple fascial planes in the neck, chest, and abdomen. So, like I said before, the fascia connects while kind of also differentiating and separating the different compartments of our body. So it separates. There's fascia that separates the muscles and tissues in our neck, the muscles and tissues in our chest and abdomen, so that they're all even though they're connected, they're distinct from each other, protected from each other. And scarring, adhesions, and chronic tension in our fascia can restrict nerve mobility and exoplasmic flow, which exoplasmic is just the flow of our cell contents. So, my mom brought this up as well, and she said that women who've undergone C-section um, definitely experience different issues because of this relationship with fascia, and that makes perfect sense because a C-section happens um, in the abdominal area, which is one of the sections that the vagus nerve innervates. So if you're seeing these type of issues, then that is pretty much coherent with how the fascia is um, relating to the vagus nerve.
Yeah.
And distorted
Well,
sensory input from tight fascia can alter autonomic responses. So when you're, like I already said before, when your fascia is tight, you're gonna trigger autonomic responses that may not be favorable for vagal tone. And now the opposite, how the vagus nerve can actually affect the composition of our fascia. So if we are able to have healthy vagal tone, this is going to kind of promote a sense of safety that allows our fascial tissue to soften and open up. And we're able to be in the best state possible when we're open and when our fascia is loose and springy. That's when it's going to be the most healthy, hydrated, and in the best spot to be as youthful as possible. And chronic sympathetic dominance keeps our fascia in this like really tight and stiff state, and that's going to leave us a lot more injury prone than we want to be. We're not going to be able to extend and expand to do all of these different movements. We're going to be too tight and too stiff, and that may be causing injuries when we're playing sports again.
Wow.
In breath movement in manual work that engage the vagus nerve, help rehydrate and release fascia, which is so, so important. And the manual work that I'm going to plug specifically, of course, none other than Traeger. Traeger probably stimulates the vagus nerve um, to I would say a different level because it promotes a sense of safety that allows the fascial tissue to soften. And some people even fall asleep during trigger sessions, and that even shows you how vulnerable and how safe the body can feel. That even though you're in the presence of a practitioner, your body feels so safe that it can just fall asleep in the hands of somebody else. And I feel like that's a really special thing that doesn't come from a lot of other modalities. That you feel so safe, so cared for that you're able to kind of doze off and fall asleep, which I've had
Yeah,
many
I had
many
that
times.
experience.
Yeah, Jonathan's probably had it. Diego's had it. So many people fall asleep because it just feels so nice.
You feel like renewed too after, man. I love Traeger. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a protocol for it called the polyvagal approach, and that I took the class on it, and I of course it's just a different order of trigger movements, but actually the polyvagal works on the head, the neck, the abdomen, and the stomach, and that's it. You don't really work on any limbs or anything like that, and it makes perfect sense with the innervation of the vagus nerve.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think one of the questions that we had right now going to it is by it was said, does healing your way offer any support? Oh no, sorry. One of the questions here, are there any exercises that help? Yes, so by the same person, it said any exercise that help. So going here, talking about exercise, one of the first things that we talked about was the breath work, obviously. And we mentioned that early on in this podcast, how breathing, right, with longer exhales, um, that helps the vagal tone, as well as cold exposure, right? So you don't have to have ice bath, but if you can, but also just getting cold water and just splashing on your face, especially in the morning, right? It triggers this dive reflex and it helps lower your heart rate, and that increases your vagal tone because that increases also your parasympathetic nervous system. And one of the most interesting things that I was talking with Sahan with was the voice and vibration, and how humming and singing or chanting can actually help connect with your vagus nerve and help lower this sense of stress or your sympathetic nervous dominance over your parasympathetic nervous system. And it was actually very interesting, right? Sahan, how we were saying how it connects to it. And I think you wanted to mention one part on the anatomy of it.
Yeah, so um, the vagus nerve also um, innervates vocal slits in our voice box. There are these two branches that um, one on the left side goes through. Actually, I forget which side it's on, but one goes under the arch, comes back up as
I believe it's on the right side.
the right
Hmm.
laryngeal branch goes
Hmm.
up, um, and goes into those vocal. Same with the left, the subclavian artery, and when you're humming, you're actually vibration, which is stimulatory, and that's going to further um, increase the vagal tone. You do kind of humming exercises. Mentastics is something really good to do because it's really easy, free flowing movement that's going to open up the fascia as well. The breathing exercise, exercises like Jonathan said. I also think maybe different yoga poses feel very relaxing to you, not high stress, will also be really type of exercise or movement based things to help you
Yeah,
out.
exactly. I feel like there's definitely a balance in between having that like cardio workouts, right, where you get your heart rate up. But I feel like it's as important to also have those workouts where you're keeping your heart rate low, try and control your breathing, work on that rhythmic bilateral movement improvement, right? And that yoga, the yoga will help there, and also it will just increase your HRV over time, your heart rate variability. And then, of course, social safety as well, safe connections, laughter. As we mentioned before, we are social creatures, and we need that social safety. Yeah. And then the last one is one of the last things that we could do is also is learning how to stretch your neck correctly, um, and that will also increase your vagal tone. Yeah.
So, coming more towards the end of things, here is a little practical daily toolkit that you can apply at different times throughout your day in order to make sure that you're constantly trying to stimulate more vagal tone. Because I can 100% guarantee you that if you're a college student, a high school student, you are 100% in sympathetic driving, and you need
Yeah.
to do some techniques to get you back present in the moment and get your vagal tone in the morning, along with um, morning, uh, getting sunlight, eating a meal. Also, uh, time that you're taking in the sun, minutes, incorporate slow breathing, and this while still in bed. You can do this either way. You can start this in bed. You can do it outside, morning sun. The gentle rolls will probably work a bit better in the support on your back, and the optional cool water splash to initiate human dive reflex.
There you go. Yeah. It sounds
When
like
you
a
hit
good daily
midday,
tool.
yeah, it sounds like a really good morning.
Yeah.
When you hit midday, you can go for a short walk outdoors, 1 to 2 minutes of what is called resonance breathing, which is 5 to 6 breaths per minute, which means that's not a lot of breaths at all. And people take around double of that, slowing down your breathing and taking few but and a little awareness, um, what's happening in your body, and um, really being present in the moment with a brief body scan or self hum. In the evening, longer exhalation breathing with another round of humming or soft breathing. Leg on the wall pose, which, like it's in the name, straight up on the wall. And you can use your knees to on.
Mhm.
You can use your put your hands on your knees to support that, as well as implementing some screen dimming and wind down routine for the day, which I think is really important for a lot of people to have. Blue light glasses could be a part of your routine, as well as turning off most of the light, turning them on to the night light option as well. And any reset that you can do anytime through uh, gargle water for actually 8 to 60 seconds. Um, pack on the neck. Gonna orient your um, and your five senses with the environment in pretty much a minute or. And then here we have ways and up answer questions that are in the and I'll go over pretty briefly. One, nerve is a primary conduit sympathetic system and our central regulator in all our organs. When we have chronic stress, infection, trauma, metabolic load, fascial restriction, you name it, this is going to
Mhm.
reduce our vagal tone and create a lot of these um, symptoms that we see today. Those who have auto um, affect, our low vagal that we see to contribute to all these issues and relationship between, especially our fast vagus nerve. We can really prioritize the health of our fascia and vagus nerve to really set ourselves up for a lot of success. Five, really look at that daily take slides of the breath, uh, uh, movement, connection, and even exploring some gentle body work like trigger to improve our autonomic balance over time.
Yeah, I think that that's a good key takeaway here. I think we hit all the spots on what we talked about, and I hope a lot of people learn from it, realize the simplicity of how you can improve your overall health through focusing on that vagus nerve and just being aware of how important it is in your body.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna scan over these questions. I'll probably just answer a couple just to wrap things up. Um, does healing array offer any support? Actually, I'm gonna go back to this one. Can acupuncture help with increasing your vagal tone? What other therapy can be good for me? Acupuncture is very good in addressing the fascia. Um, what it does is it kind of completes our muscle contraction cycle and allows um, the fascias to open up, relax. Um, completion. Um, crossbred cycling. They can help improve muscle tone because of the fascial release. Helps release. And this through in the acupuncture for our body are actually points. That's why acupuncturists uh, locations and put them in precise spots because that those electric stimulation center, which are then gonna open things up and release the acupuncture. Very um, modality when it comes to that. We have a lot of other therapies. A lot of our machines can do this. Our infrared sauna or red light therapy, cold exposure definitely stimulate vagal tone as well. As Traeger, um, even our EFT hypnotherapy services. I think almost all of our services kind of cover vagal tone in one sense or
Yeah,
another.
I agree. Yeah.
Check us out with that. And I think I'm gonna cut it off there and end with this closing thought, which is a regulated nervous system is the foundation of healing.
I feel yeah, I agree.
That's something
That's a
we
great way
should,
to end it off.
yeah, take from what we and yeah. Um, uh, Jonathan, you have any other closing thoughts you wanna
No,
end?
I just want to say thank you, Sahan, and this podcast for having me here today. I appreciate all the learning I had. I had a lot of learning, especially, and I hope a lot of everyone here who is listening as well has some learning that they can grasp and that they can use for their life and their future endeavors, and they can see that the small things and the small changes in our life, the simple things can definitely increase our longevity and also just our happiness, right? We talked a lot about how it increases our health, and but a lot of people miss the fact that when you increase your health, you change your lifestyle, you change the people, how you feel around other people, and yeah, I thank you again, and yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think you wrapped it up really.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank Jonathan for subbing in. Always a pleasure having you on the podcast.
thank
Thank
you,
you guys for tuning in. Today, Champions of Wellness. Healing your way. Rumble, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. We hope to see you guys next week's podcast.
thank you.